day in the life of an injured runner. What great content. For the last 2 weeks, I've been struggling a little bit with an injury that I picked up at my last 5K race. If you watched the video on the channel, you'll know I was having some pain in my lower back and in my right leg. I wish I'd documented the process a little bit more over the last 2 weeks. It's been a bit of a roller coaster of emotions. So at the time, I thought this could potentially be a stress fracture. I've since had 2 MRI scans, very expensive. But I really needed to get to the bottom of this injury because I've got some big races coming up in the next few months that I'll talk through in this video as well. The day after the race, I flew to Paris for the end of the Olympics to watch the women's marathon, and I was also taking part in a 10K fun race on the same course as the marathon, but unfortunately flew to Paris and it just became apparent that I wasn't going to be able to run. Wasn't going to be able to do the event, which was a tough point. At the time, I didn't know what the injury was. I was thinking the worst. The 2-week process of my injury and where I am now, it looks a little bit different. It's been a little bit up and down, but hopefully in today's video, I can catch you up to date. If this video looks a little bit janky compared to the usual, please bear with me. Whilst I was in Paris, I also had my camera stolen, or well, it was my fault to be honest with you. I left it in my line bike, went into my hotel room, and then it had disappeared by the time I went down to get it. So I'm currently filming on my iPhone, basically waiting until the next YouTube payday to buy a replacement camera. Please put up with the dodgy filming. First things first, need to have a coffee. Today I have got a bike ride this morning. The weather's looking a little bit grim. Not quite the nice summer weather that we have had. And I've also got an elliptical session this evening. Filming a few podcasts, got a meeting with my coach, so it's a very busy day. I thought I would talk you through a day in the life of sort of an injured runner, what I'm doing to get back, my rehab routines, who I've spoken to in terms of getting a diagnosis, figuring out what I can and can't do, and what I'm going to do moving forward to hopefully make those start lines in just over a month's time. So before I make a coffee, I thought I would just update you on my injury, what it actually is, what I first thought it was, and sort of the process of getting that diagnosis. So yeah, injuries as a runner, I'm sure you can relate. Everyone who is into running in a big way will have experienced injuries, these periods of time where you don't know what's wrong with you, you don't know how long it's going to be until you're back running. So yeah, let me start with right back to the beginning. So I felt the pain in the race, lower back. I thought it was a sacrum stress fracture, which is what my symptoms were suggesting. I've got some friends that have had similar issues. I now know that it wasn't that, but at the time in my head, if it was a sacrum stress fracture, any further running would have made that a hell of a lot worse. I made the decision to stop in the race. I knew something wasn't quite right, and I think that was the best decision. Ultimately, I've not damaged anything any further, and hopefully I will have a shortened recovery period as a result. I'm hoping that this will be the last and the only time I drop out of a race, and I think there's a little bit of a difference between like pushing through the pain of a 5K and actually having the pain of an injury, which could ultimately see you out for months. So anyway, 2 days later, I went and got an MRI scan in London to try and get a little bit more clarity on what was causing the pain in my lower back, in my hips, and sort of pelvic region. So I had the first MRI scan on the Monday, very expensive, these private MRIs. But for me, as a running content creator, if I can't run, I can't generate an income. I've got some campaigns and some projects that I'm working on in sort of the next few months, where if I can't run, I'm gonna lose a hell of a lot of my income, the way I earn a living. So yes, it's a hell of a lot of money, but it's sort of an investment in my work. So 3 days after the initial scan, it came back all clear in terms of the fractures, which is really good news. If it had been a sacrum stress fracture, it could have been like 12 to 16 weeks of complete rest, no cross training whatsoever, which would have absolutely broken me, and that was the worst case scenario. I rely on fitness and exercise for my mental health, so I knew that if I had to be basically sat in an armchair for 12 weeks, that would be really tough. So the root cause of my pain was 2 bulging discs in my lower back. So in between your vertebrae, you've got these discs. You may have heard of somebody having a slip disc. And basically what I've got is these discs have become squished and they've started to bulge out of the side a little bit. So I've got two bulging discs. In your discs, you've got a lot of nerves, which is causing me quite a bit of discomfort. Thankfully, 2 weeks since this injury, I'm already seeing a lot of improvement in my lower back. So I think it's just a case of, with some mobility work, which I've been doing a lot of, it's an injury that hopefully won't cause me too much issues moving forward if I stay on top of the mobility. But what I was experiencing is still some weakness in this right leg. So when I was going up the stairs, I was getting a little bit of pain. I also did the hop test and I could still feel some discomfort in this right leg. So I jumped on a call with a physio. We went through a load of exercises, which he could then sort of build a bit more of a diagnosis of what was going on with me. And one of the things we couldn't rule out was a femoral shaft stress fracture, this time on the right side, because that's where I was feeling the discomfort. And obviously with a history of having a femoral shaft stress fracture on the left-hand side, it was something that potentially could have been causing my issues this time round. So I got another scan, fast forward another 3 days, it came back, no femoral shaft. In fact, both femurs are looking healthy, which is great news. But it did, again, find some irregularities in my pelvis region. Basically, my hip flexor has become so tight to the point where it may cause me some injuries if I don't address it moving forward. And yeah, there's some other irregularities in sort of the way my pelvis is sitting in terms of forward, backwards, left, right, tilt type thing. So again, I've booked in to see an osteopath in a few days' time, get some massage work, again, work on some mobility and additional things in my workout routine that will hopefully address them in the weeks that come. Ultimately, I thought the injury was really, really bad, and after all, without sounding like I was being too dramatic, because obviously I was in quite a lot of discomfort and I definitely couldn't have run in that first week. It was a lot less bad, if you like, than I initially thought, which is great news. Hopefully I'll be able to return to running in around a week, 2 weeks time. So a 4 to 6 week period of recovery rather than what I initially thought would have been like 3 or 4 months. So yeah, touch wood, it wasn't as bad as it first seemed. And I'm already seeing some good signs of improvement, and I've put in all of the measurements that I possibly could. I've gone to a physio, I've going to see an osteopath, I've had 2 scans and get a diagnosis which allows me to tailor my recovery as much as possible. So yeah, that's a little bit of an update in terms of what's actually wrong with me and how I plan to get back running in as soon as possible, really. Oh yeah, I've already had my breakfast. Now I'm on to my coffee, which is all part of my routine before I go out on the bike this morning. But yeah, let me talk you quickly through my race calendar for the next few months, really. So the next race I have coming up is the Copenhagen half marathon, which at the time of filming this is 4 weeks away. So I'm still hopeful that I can make that start line. Admittedly, I'm not going to be in the best half marathon shape of my life, but it's all booked. I'm going out with my family. My sister has been training her socks off for that race. She's hoping to break the 2-hour mark. So worst case scenario, I'm going to run around with her and do a little bit of a pacing job, but I'm hopeful based on what the discussions I've had with the physio, the doctor, an osteopath tomorrow. I'm hopeful that I'll still be able to make that start line because in the last 2 weeks, things have been progressing really well. So the first one is Copenhagen Half Marathon. Probably my favourite race of the entire year in terms of my calendar. I think I've done it, this will be my 3rd time. I've got the t-shirt on from 2022, which is when I actually ran my personal best of 67:15. It was a perfect race. The course is super, super flat. It almost has a Valencia marathon sort of field in terms of for somebody running around the 67 to 75 minute pace for a half marathon. There's loads and loads of guys and girls that run that sort of time. So it means that when you're on the course, you've got these huge packs that form, which just make running that sort of pace a lot easier. And you don't often get that with other half marathon races. So yeah, Copenhagen half marathon, I'm definitely going to be there with the whole family. I'm really looking forward to that weekend. 2 weeks after that, I have the Berlin Marathon. Training has looked a little bit different over the last 2 weeks, but in the 14 weeks before that, my base building phase of that marathon block has been going really, really well. Before the injury, I think I was in the best sort of 5-10k shape that I've ever been in. So I'm trying to forget the last sort of 2 weeks of disrupted training It's ultimately only been around a week of not doing very much. This week I've been able to jump on the bike, on the cross trainer. So in terms of my aerobic fitness, I've hopefully maintained some of that, and it would just take a few weeks of getting back into training again. But all our eggs are in the Valencia basket. So I'm racing the Valencia Marathon on the 1st of December. I say we, I'm talking about myself and my coach. We're going to be targeting that race to run as quick as I possibly can over the marathon distance. And in the build up to that one, I'm also doing a tune-up race at the Amsterdam Half Marathon. So yeah, 4 races in the calendar to look forward to. But the main focus at the moment is rehabbing this injury and hopefully be back racing pretty soon. What shall we wear today? Something bright. If you're thinking of doing some cross training, by the way, on the bike, these are essential. Pink Jack Wills water bottle. That isn't going to make me 10 times faster, I don't know what is. Right, probably not going to film too much of this, but I'm going to do about an hour in zone 2, so keep the heart rate around 135 to 140 beats per minute. Fun and games. Here we go, baby. It's a little bit windy today. Woo! It's windy out there today. So let's have a look at the stats. An hour and 12 minutes of cycling. I just try and keep my heart rate as close to what I can when I'm doing an easy run as possible. Sometimes on the bike it's quite hard. So I averaged heart rate 131, max heart rate 154. Kept things in zone 2, and I'll do an easy elliptical session this afternoon as well. So yeah, not a bad start to the day. Just got to get showered and get ready for the podcast, which is in about half an hour's time. So I just finished up a podcast with the boys. If you don't know, I have a running podcast that I co-host with Callum and Tom. It's called Run It Three Ways. If you've never listened to an episode, then I'll leave a link down in the description. Every 2 weeks we post a running-based podcast that may be something that you're interested in. And I just had a chat with my coach, Victor, which was really good. Kind of put in a plan in the coming weeks to implement some more intensity on the elliptical. So do some of my more threshold type sessions that I'd been doing, but onto the elliptical to manage the impact. And obviously I was telling him that I've got a osteopath appointment tomorrow, so hopefully that will give me a bit more of an idea of a return to run program. But yeah, basically the situation that I'm in now is that my back has improved to a point where I can now potentially go for a run, but it's one of those where I just want to make sure things are properly sorted out, that I get the advice from professionals that I'm not going to go and do more longer term damage if I do run. And I also just want to make sure that I've got in place my mobility and strength work moving forward to ensure that my current pelvis and hip tightness doesn't sort of escalate into a long-term problem if I go and start running again. I think the next few weeks for me are going to be all about just slowly building back. In the meantime, I can basically resume my training, just not with impact. So yeah, jumping on the elliptical like I'm going to do this afternoon. But before I jump on the elliptical for my afternoon session, I'm going to do 45 minutes easy today. So just a nice easy day in terms of all zone 2 work. And then I'm going to do a little bit more intensity tomorrow. A little bit boring in terms of training today. I should have probably picked a better day in terms of I was doing something a little bit more exciting. But yeah, I'm going to just quickly put some different shorts on because I look like a little bit of a tramp. And then I'm going to head down to my local coffee shop and edit the podcast and some other video bits that I've got to sort out before, yeah, head into maybe the gym this evening or in the back garden. The elliptical is pretty rogue out there. But I've borrowed one from my parents that has been in their shed for about 20 years. So yeah, it's questionable, but it gets the job done. So I'm just getting ready to go for my second Bit of exercise for the day. When I get injured, I like to try and replicate my usual training as much as I can. So typically, today I will be doing an easy run in the morning and an easy run in the afternoon. So today I did an easy bike ride this morning, and I'm going to jump on the elliptical for an easy 45 minutes. I am feeling a little bit tired, so I might call it after half an hour. And I personally, my approach to cross training for runners is just basically try and replicate what you would usually do whilst running. So a lot of my sessions become time-based. For example, if I was going to do some 3K reps like I would in a marathon build, I'd translate that into a 10-minute interval on the elliptical. So I'll do something like, instead of the 4x3K session that I would do out on the road, I'll do 4x10 minutes on the elliptical. So yeah, I'm just going to jump on there outside. It's looking a little bit windy. We've had some pretty blustery conditions today. Get that done, and yeah, wrap up a day of marathon training without actually doing any running. So yeah, not really looking forward to this, but get some good YouTube videos on and I'll breeze through it, no problem. Right, let's get this done then. This is the glitz and glamour at the moment. Just getting it done. While I'm doing this cross training, I'm just focused solely on getting in the best shape possible for Copenhagen, trying to maintain my fitness for the marathons that I've got coming up. And yeah, hopefully if you see some PBs later on in the year, then yeah, know that some of the hard work was done sweating out here in the garden. But yeah, time to crack on. Now we're talking. Time and lead time. So I just finished up on the elliptical. Got a little friend with me. This is Rudy, our friend's dog. We're just looking after him for a little bit. But yeah, good session there, 45 minutes. Just again, nice and easy. Quickly look at heart rate data, average 136, so pretty similar to what I did this morning on the bike. But yeah, just wanted to document a little bit of the injury process, coming back, learning what I can and can't do. As I said, hopeful to get running again in the next few weeks. But until then, I'm just going to do as much cross training as my body will allow, basically. And then, yeah, hopefully by the time Copenhagen comes around, I'll be in fairly decent shape and hopefully back into my running well and truly now. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the vlog. It was a little bit of a ramble, but it was one of those that I needed to put out for my own sake, my own mental health, my own journey here on YouTube. Hopefully you found a little bit of insight into the cross training that I do to ultimately run pretty quick over the marathon distance later this year. So yeah, thanks for watching. Aspire to run, run to inspire, and we'll see you again soon.